Hello, and welcome to the Real with Shannon Live. Crazy them because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning and in the midst of COVID?
Working for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put the community first.
Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. Thank you for joining us tonight. And hello there, my co-host, Dr. Vanessa. How you doing?
Hey, Lottie. I'm great. I'm excited.
Look, I can't wait. Hurry up and get that introduction over because
Absolutely. Everybody just stand by for our special guest tonight. His name is Mr. Bobby Love. He's from North Carolina. He is married with 4 children. Him and his lovely wife, Cheryl, lives between New York and Atlanta. Please stay tuned for his journey. Let's welcome my guest tonight, Mr. Bobby Love.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Love. I tell you, I couldn't wait for tonight to talk to you. I want to thank LaRose for introducing me to you. She goes to your church. They go to church together. And She was telling me, you have to meet the deacon at my church and hear about his story. So when she told me about the story, I was like, yes. Ask him, could he come on our show, right? So we're just so excited to have you joining us tonight because your story is like no other story. I tell you, a story of faith, family, and justice. I tell you, I can't wait for you to tell the people about this story. So what I want to start off with, you tell us the beginning of how this all became about, because I know you was arrested. I think it was for armed robbery, and then you went to prison. So let's take it from there.
Okay, back.
I know you were doing. You can tell us about some of the little stuff you were doing before they actually, you got sent prison the last time.
Okay, the last time I got to prison, I was arrested for escape. They came in, the cops, FBI. It was back in 2015. They came in like, oh boy, it was very shocking, and my wife was very scared. And they took me out that day and told me I was arrested for the escape of 1977.
Well, take us back to 1977 when you first got in trouble in North Carolina before you escaped. What happened then that brings us up to that point?
There was 4 of us, and we would come down to North Carolina and do robberies. We were robbing banks and credit unions. So we got arrested in 1971, and from there we went to prison, myself and 3 other co-defendants.
So I think that
then one day you was leaving, going. I think you said it was moving you to another place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, after being in prison for so long, and I worked in the hospital. I worked in the canteen, I worked in the kitchen, and then they moved me to the road, going out there cleaning up and picking paper up and cutting grass and things like that. I felt like I was done wrong by even being sent out there. So that's when I started to look around and think about doing something else. And like leaving.
Before you continue, not interrupt you, but how many years did they give you for just armed robbery?
They gave us 25 to 30 years.
Oh, 25 to 30 years. And
yes,
how many years you served?
I served 6.
You made that decision.
I served 6.
He figured 6 years was too long, right?
Yeah.
So
they were, you I don't know. In prison, it's like a sometimes you have things that happen, and one of the captains told me that once they took me out of the canteen, that was one of the best jobs there, and they took me out for no reason. So I talked to a black captain because the white captain took me out, and he said, if you don't have trouble, why knock it? Why continue to try to go back or try to get that job back, and just be happy that nothing else happened from this. Mm-hmm. And that's when they sent me out to the road, and I said that wasn't right.
Right. So what happened then when they sent you out to the road?
Well, it was getting cold out there, so they gave me a coat. So they gave me a big coat to wear out there while I work on the road. This was in late October. And I thought to myself, I said, if I can go through this gate with my own personal coat and have double clothes on, and I had already picked out a spot where I could jump off the back of this bus, I would leave. So I did a test run with the coat that they gave me by putting it in a big bag. So I put it in a big bag, went through the gate. Nobody stopped me. Nobody said to me, you can't come through here with this coat on. And okay. So I said, okay. And it was like, now I'm setting up a day that I'm gonna actually do this. I had a little bit of money. I had been saving my personal money that I get, $5 a week. And I had some money from just keeping me some money. And finally last that day come, and I jumped off the back of the bus and ran to the woods. Took off the clothes that was on the top, and I put on the leather coat that I had in the bag, and then it was on to try to get to the bus station in Raleigh.
Wow.
Well, that is a journey, right? And I know from that journey brought you to New York. 40 years since in New York. So how was that?
Okay, I had been to New York many a time shopping and stuff like that as I grew up in Washington, D.C. So I had some history with New York. So my thing was to get to New York and just blend in. I made an oath that I was not going to get in any kind of trouble. So when I got to New York, the first thing I did was went over and on 42nd Street. 42nd Street was a lot different back then. They had all the peep shows and a lot of stuff going on. I called it sex, drugs, and rock and roll back then. And I just blend in with that environment, that group, and I just walked around 42nd Street. I would come down and get me a hot dog or get me a soda. And I stayed in a little flea bag of a hotel one night for $8. And I said, no, I'm not doing that no more. So I would ride the subway, and I would sleep in some of the subway stations that were warm at that time. Yes, I would.
Really?
But once you got to New York, when did you decide that was going to be your life? When did you decide that you wasn't going to go back? When did you decide that you were going to change your name and become someone else?
Well, my name was changed that night that I got on the bus. A girl asked me on the bus she rode to Philadelphia. I rode on to New York. But she asked me my name. She was a nice looking young lady. And she said to me, she said, she had a situation where a guy that she had met came down to North Carolina, and he had lied to her about his living quarters, that he had his own apartment and all that stuff, but he didn't. So she stayed down there the weekend with her mother, his mother, and a sister that had a baby, and they was in a little cramped apartment. She said, I'm going back to New York. Going back to Philadelphia. And that's what she did. So we talked a little bit, mostly she talked, explaining her story to me. And I just listened, and I was just glad when she got off in Pennsylvania. I could concentrate on myself, thinking ahead as to what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it.
So wait a minute. So she gave you the name Bobby?
No, she asked me my name, and I said Bobby.
Oh, so you just said Bobby?
Yeah, I just said Bobby.
Well, why Bobby? Why Bobby?
Okay, I knew a young man that his father was a a man that I knew. I lived in his house, and he was actually born out of wedlock to not to his wife, but another lady. So I thought about just taking his name and I'm not sure, but I thought, and I found out later that he was still alive. I knew his brother had passed, but I thought he had passed instead of the brother. So my thoughts were to take his name.
Wow.
And love. So that was just an attachment on that just came to you because you were looking for love?
Well, Bobby Love was I don't know, I always liked it. It's a good name.
It's a good ring. It's a good ring.
There was a basketball player that played for the Chicago Bulls named Bobby Love. Bob Love. Okay. And so I thought about him, but I like the name Bobby Love. Yes.
So how long did you ride the subway back and forth and stuff before you really found some place, that was decent to live? Did you end up was able to get a job? No one questioned you anything. You was able to get a job?
Okay, a lady. I went to in walking around New York at this time, I walked into different places. Okay, I saw a Social Security office, so I walked in there and applied for a Social Security card in the name Bobby Love. There was a Black lady that worked there at that time. And I told her, and she looked at my application after I filled it out. I gave her the address in Washington, D.C., where I last lived. She said, "Oh, we're going to send your card here?" She said, "To Washington, D.C.? I said, "Yeah, I'll go down there and get it once you send it." She said, "No, I'll give you your card today." I said, "Okay." So that right there was a big help when she gave me this Social Security card.
Well, wait, you didn't need any identification?
You got a card the same day?
Yes, I got a card the same day. I had no ID. And you have to have something to get a job and things like that. So she gave me the card and I was on my way. Okay, my next stop was, I went to a couple of homeless shelters. But I looked around in that homeless shelters and I said, I'm not standing in here. So there was a flyer that they had advertising jobs at the Concord where they made the movie Dirty Dancing.
Right.
So the next day they was taking a busload of people up there to work. So I said I would go, and I got on that bus the next evening. And we, drove all the way up there in a bus. It must have been about 12 to 20 of us, going up there. Myself, a couple of white guys, a couple of Spanish people, some more blacks.
I'm going to have to cut you right quick, Mr. Love. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come right back, okay? All right.
All right.
We'll be right back.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
What's more dangerous? A man who isn't afraid of death or one who's found everything to live for? I asked him if he was proud of me. He emphatically said yes, as he laid his pecan-colored head on my chest, and I went through my mind 1,000 times to figure out what that could possibly mean, and every single example ended in motivation for me. So you may not be afraid to die, but I'm more afraid to let them down. And I found something to live for, which is a dangerous motive forever fueled. See, your thoughts may be involuntary, but my actions are very calculated. I was a man with a plan, but now I'm a dad with a decree, and you can't take that from me. My sons ain't raised by no coward, and they won't be one either. If this be the measure of a man, the yardstick gonna need way more meters. I take it too far, so they never come up short, because I found everything to live for.
Hello, and thanks for joining us tonight. Our topic tonight is the redemption of Bobby Love. And I'm sure if you was watching, you'll begin hearing his story. And we want to continue hearing this fabulous story, Mr. Bobby Love. You was telling us how you got off the train to start your regular life?
Yes. So I go to up to the Concord, and I'm just up there, and my job was to just wash dishes. I said, give me anything. But the big thing was that I would be living there as I worked, and they would take it out of your pay, your living quarters, and I would eat free and those kind of things. So I went up there, and as I went there, I worked 3 days the first night I got there. I worked the next 3 days I worked. Then it was like they said you don't have a schedule. So I look on the schedule, I'm working 1 day. I would look at the schedule again, I'm working 2 days. And that went on until about late December, I would say. And so after that, I said, after Christmas, I said, man, I'm leaving here. I'm going back down to the city. They're not letting me work enough to make any money. I did the good thing about it, I just lived free as far as, I had a room over there. They had a big old rooming house, and we lived in this rooming house, and I was supposed to have a roommate, but he never showed up. So
you had the room by your
basically by myself. Yeah.
So to fast forward a little bit, before our time ran out, is okay. So how did you get to really living like you're supposed to? So you met Miss Love, Cheryl Love.
Okay.
What happened that you got to that point? Now I'm working, I have a job, I have somewhere to stay, and
yes,
you run into her.
Okay. I met my wife at the job in Brooklyn. I applied for a job, I think it was 1983. And the lady that was running the place at the time, the kitchen, I just applied, like I said, a cook's, not a cook's job, but a dishwasher. I can wash your dishes. I can do that, But they didn't know that I had skills, like I had already worked in a kitchen and I had other work, that kind of stuff. But anyway, my wife was working there also. So I would meet her, and we talked a few times, and we would have lunch together from time to time. And when I asked her out the first time, she said no. So she didn't want to go out with somebody what she worked. I said, okay.
Well, that's normally right. We don't play where we work.
And, I found out a little bit about her. She said her mother had passed, and her father, she lived with her father. Her father was big in the church, where they went to church and stuff like that. And all that interests me, I'd always learned, or somebody had told me that, girls that's tight with their fathers make good wives,
Mm-hmm.
By this time, I'm about almost 30 years old at this time. And, I'd always said I wanted to be married and have some children and things like that. So
right.
After I met her, but I didn't give up on her after she said she wouldn't go out with me, And plus there was somebody else that wanted to date me. And from what I understand, the lady told another lady that told Cheryl that, yeah, you told Bobby no. And the girl said, yeah. She said, I don't want to go. Cheryl said, I don't want to go out with him. I work here with him. But to fight off the other girl that was interested in me, she came back later on and said she would go out with me. And that was the start of my relationship.
No, Mr. Love, you have to get it. She wanted you all the time. But you can't just give in like that.
There wasn't no competition. That's what it was.
you can't make it easy for the man. You know that now.
Exactly. But
now all of this. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Well, you have lived an interesting life over the years, and with her, you have 4 beautiful kids.
Yes.
How was your life now when 5 years passed, 10 years passed, 15 years passed? You have this new life. Have you ever thought it would be a time where your past would catch up with you?
Oh, from time to time I would think about it. And, my sister, I have a sister in Greensboro. She came to my wedding in New York. And actually with some other people, my brother, he's passed now. So they said things to me like, are you going to tell her about your real name? And I said, no. I knew if my wife knew that I was, a parole, escape from jail or anything like that, she would tell me to turn myself in. And I just said no. And I told my sister one time, I said, well, I'm going to take it to my grave on my dying bed. If it comes to that, I would tell her, if I'm laying there and knowing I'm going to die, I would tell her that at that time. So.
Wow, you would wait until you're going to die?
He was having such a good life.
But that's how bad I did not want to go back to jail.
Right.
Jail is, oh man, it's dangerous. Yeah. It's more dangerous now than it was when I was in jail.
Yeah. But that day when you heard the knock at the door, somebody was banging on your door.
Yes.
You thought it was a neighbor?
I thought it was for the neighbor. I had a lady that lived next to me that had some issues, and she had been arrested a couple of times, and I just thought it was for her. And I told him, I said, next door. He said, no, we're looking for 2A. So my wife was in the kitchen, and she said, who the knocking on this door like that, because they was, they had a fist, and seemed like to me they was hitting the door with their fist.
Hard, like they normally do.
Right. And she went to the door and opened the door. And at that time, my bed, our bed was in the living room. So you open the door and there's my bed right there where I was sleeping, because my kids had the other rooms. And they just rushed in, FBI. They had FBI on the back of their blazers. They had New York City police, and it must have been about 12 of them. They came in there and they went through the house.
12?
Yes, there was 4 FBI agents, and the rest of them was New York City police.
That's escort.
Yeah, they thought I had guns and things like that. So they went to the back and they looked around and they asked if I had guns and things like that. They woke up my daughter, was in the last room, and then my other son had already gone to school. Then my other son, I have fraternal twin sons. So Justin was still at home and Jessica was still there. And Jordan had already left for school that morning. So they told him that they told my kids to stay where they are. Do not come up here. We're going to search your house looking for guns. And they said, do you know who your father is? And asking them questions and stuff like that. So after doing all of that, they questioned me and they asked me what was my name. And I said, in a low voice, I said, Bobby Love. He said, no, I want your real name. And that's when my wife said, who are you? And my wife she would start crying, and, they had frightened her pretty bad. So they talked to my kids, and they told my kids, they said that, well, we're going to take your father with us, that your father has been an escapee from North Carolina for a number of years. And we finally last found him. So they said that they were not looking for me. Somebody told them where I was and who I was. So that right there brought all of this on.
Right. Wow.
Do you have any idea who possibly have done that?
I thought
probably somebody in the family. Probably somebody. Yeah, that's what tell on you, the family. You know it.
I was told that it was a $2,000 reward. From all these years, the reward never changed. So for $2,000, they did what they did to get that by telling them.
That's all you have to do is put up an reward. No matter how cool it is, they're going to throw you in for it. That person
after they arrested you and everything, so they took you. I know you spent some time here in Rikers, and then you made the decision that you wanted to go back to North Carolina.
Yeah, they took me out and they told me they wouldn't handcuff me in front of my children. So they took me out and they handcuffed me on the ledge as we were going down. And actually, the cops started talking to me about, after they found out who I was and everything that was involved, they said, man, you have lived a great life, that you should write a book. But little did they know that I had already started writing a book when I first met my wife. And I used to put the pages up in the top of my closet, and my wife would go up there and read it. But she couldn't understand it because the way I started about coming to New York, and I had the song "Living for the City" by Stevie Wonder. So one day she said to me, she said, "What is that about?" I said, "I told you not to bother that," but she went up there anyway.
Oh my God. Well, so that we know before the show ends, this part of the show, we're coming back to finish up, but to know that, after you went back to North Carolina and everything, you stayed there for another couple of months, almost a year in jail, but you eventually was brought up before the judge again, and they finally released you.
Okay. As I went back to North Carolina, I was at Central Prison. Central Prison was all new now. It was it wasn't like when I was there before. So now, and I'm a deacon in my church, and my life now is great as far as I'm concerned. With my children, everything was good. My two sons had graduated high school. My daughter was down. No, she wasn't down here yet. She was down here yet in her own house. Now this is a house that we have bought together. So I would, I would give everything up to God. My life now is about God and praying.
Well, we certainly, when we look over what you have said, we know it was only God.
Yes.
But we have to wrap up this part of the show. And so we want to thank you for joining us, today to tell your story. And we want to thank everyone for watching. You can continue to watch us finish the show. You can go to Facebook or YouTube and type in "Keeping It Real with Shannon," and you can see the rest of the story as he's finished telling the story. But for now, this is the end of the show. So we want to thank you for joining us tonight. And as always, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Would you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Faith Art Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shannon.